Developing a game is hard, especially if you're doing it all by yourself. You should just never start. That's what I've been telling myself for a few years now, but this Christmas a miracle happened. I came to the conclusion that it's not only about the end result, it's about the journey. And I know everyone has weaknesses, and my weakness is, to be honest, programming and animation, but instead of abandoning the project out of fear that I could fail and be an embarrassment for my family and for my whole generation, I can just treat it as a way to learn. I will try my best to have something playable in the end. So over the last 2 weeks I worked on a prototype for a game called Jagd. And I gotta say, it was quite a challenge, especially cause I didn't use any assets from the asset store and painted all the textures by hand. It's a solo dev project and I had to juggle a lot of balls. That means doing all the concept art, programming, modeling, sculpting, texturing, animating, rigging. I probably forgot a few things, but yeah. A lot of what you see is not a final look and just prototype art, so please keep that in mind. So let's just get into it. First day was all about brainstorming and finding ideas. So I started with a rough sketch and just tried to find the setting I'm going for, and I ended up with this dark fantasy cave setting. Game design wise, I don't think I was ready to start the project and jump into Unity, but that's just what I did, and I modeled a crossbow and just started playing around in the engine. But I think the game design evolved over time and changed a lot, so I don't know, maybe it's just that I think you have to do it like that, and I don't know. So I guess you could say I didn't have any plan, but I had motivation, and that was enough at the time. I also added the first enemy type, and it was a flying cube. Very scary. But that's pretty much it for the first day, so on to the second day. Day 2 was weird. It started out with simple concept sketches for monsters, and it ended up with this. And yes, those are bats holding a human head. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but all the joint physics were not working for me, and it was only making it more complicated and unpredictable, so I deleted the head and got back to just the bat. I didn't use any IK for the rig, and I only used the auto IK feature by Blender, and I think it was enough. I didn't really know enough about rigging with IK, so I just kind of ignored it. But for the other characters I needed to learn how to do that, but yeah, I'll get to that later. And the rest of the day I can't really tell you what I did, because my screen recordings are all black and I muted the video on my OBS, so yeah. I'm sorry. On day 3 I worked on sword physics all day long, cause I had to figure out why it doesn't work with regular colliders. And to keep it short, it's because the collider moves too fast. I did try to use other collision detection modes and other interpolation modes, but in the end I came up with a more accurate way to check collision. I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but right now I'm casting rays out of the tip and the base of the blade, and also a few points in between, and checking what's between the last and the current frame, and everything in between gets hit. Day 4 was all about juice. I felt like I needed more feedback when hitting enemies, and one way to do it is spawn particle effects. Another way I'm showing feedback is to change the material into an emissive white material and then change it back. And the last thing I changed in terms of feedback is to show damage numbers in front of the enemy characters, so you get a feel of how powerful your weapon is. Cause I'm also planning to include upgrades and modifiers for your crossbow and other weapons. And also it's useful to show when you landed a headshot. Day 5 is the only day I worked on environment. I should have worked more on it, but I guess you can't do everything all at once. I started with big rock walls to replace my ugly big prototype cube walls. At this point I wasn't really sure about the workflow, but I figured out pretty quickly that I want to do everything by hand. That means All the assets are textured and sculpted in ZBrush and Clip Studio Paint. No photo textures allowed. And this is not a pride thing or anything, it's just cause I'm having fun doing it. But this also means that I can't use normal maps by Quixel or anything. I have to either paint or sculpt every normal map. So anyways, this is how it looked after the first day of environment art. It will probably change a lot, this is just the current state of it. And from now on I will stop counting days cause I lost track of it. On this day I didn't do much, I just sketched a bit and played around in the engine. After that I was leaving for a vacation in Austria and gathered a lot of inspiration. I think a big part of being an artist is observing nature and observing how things work. Because everything feeds into what you do and what inspires you, and what you like will also reflect on your art. I'm not trying to sound smart or anything, but I really think that's the case. Back at home I continued to work on the character I started designing before I left for vacation. Most of the characters I'm planning to do for the game will probably have some sort of mutation. For example, this character has 3 arms. Why? Because I like it. And it's a cool concept, I think. I have to think about the reason for that. Maybe it's some kind of parasite or fungus that's changing people's DNA or something over time. It's fantasy, let me have some fun please. Here I'm working on a rig, and as I said before, I had to learn everything about IK and it was a pain. It took a lot of time and I won't show you any of this because it's boring. And here is the first animation for the character. Keep in mind, I said in the beginning that I'm not good at animating, but that's just the result. I hope it will get better towards the end of the project. Maybe you already noticed the gauntlet. I thought it would be cool to be able to cast spells for AoE damage and to include a mana or cooldown system, I'm not sure yet, but it would be a nice addition. So I tried it out. And the last step before I conclude this devlog was to include items that you could pick up and replace your current weapon. I won't have an inventory system because I'm a really bad programmer, but I will include items. You can just switch them, so you have 3 slots and can only replace the current item you're using. Another thing that I included this day was the combo counter. It goes up when you kill enemies and it goes down if you don't kill enemies. So the game motivates you to keep your combo streak up, otherwise you won't be able to afford any upgrades, which is bad, and you'll die. That's all I have for you for the first devlog update. My plan for the next update is probably going to be a playable prototype with all the roguelike elements built in and focusing on the core gameplay a little bit more. If you want to see more devlogs and see this game progress, I would appreciate your support by following the game page on social media and checking out my Ko-fi page. Maybe you'll find something or you just want to donate because you're a good person. Links in the description. Thanks, bye.